My name is Anthony Chervet. I'm the business developer for aerospace at Extreme Engineering, and I'm glad to have that chance today to explain you how we consider the virtual testing of CFRP in order to generate fast and accurate allowable. So here is a brief overview of the presentation that I will give today. So I will start with a brief introduction to recap a little bit about the challenge in terms of modeling for the composite material. And then I will describe what are the requirements to define properly a virtual testing platform in order to generate some allowables. And we will have a deeper focus on the way we can insert some variabilities in the composite material modeling. And then I will finish with the last chapter or last paragraph to explain how we can go further with a micromechanic approach. So what else can we do? What can we do more with a micromechanic approach? And then I will finish with a conclusion. So the insertion of composite material today relies on what we call a building block approach, which is followed for the certification. And all this certification process today is done by test. And the insertion of or the introduction of composite material has required to rescale completely the procedure of material testing. So the building block approach, it starts from the elementary level where we proceed to the material screening and selection, where also we define the material specification and where we generate the allowable. All this phase, which is at the bottom of the pyramid, it's done at the coupon level. And then when we want to go for the certification level, certification process, then we go up into the pyramid and we introduce some complexity. We have to deal with the element, the subcomponent, and then the full test. But while in the 80s, for example, the choice between two materials were limited, to very few materials, so mainly aluminum, then the introduction of the composite material has completely enlarged the choice between the material themselves, between the combination of the ply, between the stacking, and has required to completely rescale this building block approach. So the concepts are almost changed. Now we have more focus on the tolerance, and we have also more focus on the effect of environment. So all this resizing of the testing matrix require to have a very large test matrix, which can take about 1 or 2 years of testing, of working for the testing. And as a consequence, this has a very this can be a very costly test matrix. So one of the difficulty today is that the generation of the allowable is done mainly physically. It's done by physical tests during a long test campaign. So the objective of this test campaign is the generation of allowable, and an allowable, it's a material properties that is statistically derived from a test campaign coming from a stable process. And this allowable value will be used for the design, and that allowable value must be confident in order to decrease the likelihood that a failure event can happen. So to generate this allowable value, we had to cover a lot of different configurations. So it means, for example, a lot of different coupon tests. So a notch, open hole, fill hole, bearing for the most famous one. But we have also to cover a large different type of configuration in terms of layout or in terms of stacking sequence. And in addition, all those tests have to be repeated for different environmental conditions. On top of that, we need to have a statistical evaluation of the material properties that will take into account some different sources of variability. So this is what we call the extraction or the generation of the B-basis value, which is a value that will reflect, or that will take into account all the variability that can happen or that can appear during the whole process of testing. So variability at the material level, for example, variability that can happen during the process itself, or even variability that can happen during that operation of testing. So we will see into detail how we can take that into account in a virtual testing platform. So because this testing campaign can be very long, very expensive, then as a software provider, we can wonder why we cannot go for a virtual testing solution. And in this case, the objective will be to use virtual testing solution in order to generate allowable at the laminate level, so laminate allowable. So the objective of such a platform should be that the user wants to have the possibility to use a productive tool to define, to solve, and to post-process a complete test matrix for some specific standard tests, so mainly based on the ASTM, and where the objective will be to determine the allowable value with a reduced number of tests. So this last remark is important. The objective, it's not to substitute all the tests, it's to complement the physical test campaign. The objective or the benefit of such a virtual predictive platform would be to have a substantial time saving. Here the objective or the keyword is really to go faster, to get faster the allowable value. So the substantial time saving will be the first benefit. The second benefit will be to have some high quality data early in the design cycle. So again, it's connected to the time saving. So the quicker we can get the allowable, the quicker we can progress, or the faster we can progress in the design work. As a consequence of the two first benefits, we can have some substantial cost saving. If we can save time, we can save cost. And a last benefit of having a virtual testing platform is that we can have today, or we could have the possibility to expand the design space, which means that we can, maybe for the first time, to really consider to integrate in the design some non-standard laminates. So if we want to define such a virtual testing platform, then we have to specify or to define the different type of specification. So the first specification or the first challenge that we meet when we want to define that virtual testing platform is to have a correct model, a correct way to describe properly the failure of the laminate. So, at the opposite of metallic material which exhibit a non-linear yielding, the only reliable and observable event that happens during a CFRP test is the final failure. And the final failure can be described in terms of stress or strain, and this value will be seen as the allowable. And this has to be determined in a standard condition. And if we load any type of coupon, so like what we see here on the animation that I'm playing, so if we load this type of coupon, as a result, we have a stress-strain curve which will have this shape. So most likely we will see a kind of very straight response until the final failure. And between this point, initial point, and the final point, we have actually different failure modes that will appear depending on the angle between the reinforcement and the loading correct direction. We can have some matrix cracking that appear in the transverse ply, but we can have also some fiber cracking in the longitudinal ply. So the first requirement for the virtual testing platform is to have a suitable material failure modeling to simulate properly from the initial condition of the coupon to the final rupture of the laminate structure. So there is plenty of failure modes that appear at different levels in the laminate, and most of them are very complex to simulate or to reproduce. So we have the failure mode at the ply level or the laminar level, so what we call the intralaminar level. So there is different type of failure modes from fiber breaking to matrix cracking. And there is also the failure mode that appear between the ply, so at the interlaminar level, and this is what we call the delamination. So if we look the failure scenario of a coupon, so for example here of an open hole tension coupon, so we have, for example, some macro crack that will appear first in the ply oriented at 90 degrees. Then we will have the macro crack that appear in the ply at 45, and then finally the crack that will appear in the ply oriented at 0. So what we observe from this failure scenario, or the conclusion that we can do from that failure scenario, is that there is a need for a progressive failure modeling of the CFRP. So another challenge regarding the composite material, it's that actually when we load the coupon, we don't have a single curve like this, but if we repeat the test a couple of times, then what we will observe, it's a kind of distribution of the strength value. So we have a variability of the material property, which is more important for a composite than for a metallic material, for example. So in this case, we need a specific value that will take into account this variability. So this is what we call the allowable. And again, the allowable, it will be a material property which is statistically derived from the test data and which come from a stable process. It's important. And this value that will be used for the design must be of confidence. And this value that is used for the design is the B-basis value. So the FAA, for example, edits some guidelines how to size the test matrix in order to capture the variability and to extract correctly the allowable. So again, if we go for the definition of a virtual testing platform, then there is a need to define properly the test matrix that will allow to capture this variability or that is expected during the manufacturing, and this variability that can come from several sources. So we can have different ways to characterize this variability. If we follow the scheme of a test matrix, so we have always different number of batch that has to be tested, and from each batch we will have to extract some panel, and from each panel we will have to cut some coupon. So we can associate for different level of the test matrix different type of variability. At the batch level, we can associate the variability that directly comes from the material or from the constituent. At the panel level, we can associate the process variability, so the variability that can come from really the manufacturing process. So it can be the volume fraction, it can be the void content, it can be the curing effect. And at the coupon level, we can associate the variability that can come from really the test conditions, so what we call, for example, the post-processing variability, which can be simply a slight misalignment that appear when the coupon is cut from the panel. So if there is a misalignment in the way we cut the coupon, then that misalignment can be taken into account during the simulation. Then another challenge that we have to solve, or that we should propose a solution, it's if we have this type of behavior at room temperature, so if we have a kind of linear response with a distribution of the strength at room temperature, we have to understand that actually the B-basis value that will be used for the design, it's not the curve, or it's not the value that is obtained for room temperature condition, but it will be the value that is obtained for extreme temperature wet condition. So we have also to provide a way to be able to evaluate quickly or rapidly the B-basis value, not only in room temperature condition, but also in extreme temperature wet condition. So we will see how we can provide solutions for this as well. And then, ideally, we should have also some possibility to work on different sources, on different potential sources of variability. I mentioned already the effect of curing, so we should have a way to study, for example, the residual stresses or the effect of residual stresses on the allowable value. Also the porosity, so we will see through a case study how we can analyze the effect of percentage of the porosity onto the lamina or ply properties. And also we should have some way to study maybe some more macroscopic effect, like for example some gap, the effect of the gap that can appear due to different specific manufacturing process. So the effect of the gap that can appear on the laminate strength. So just to summarize what appears on this slide, there is a need for new methodology enabling to take into account micro or microscopic effect of defect coming from the manufacturing. So here, what we propose inside the platform, it's methodology that will mix micromechanics, material engineering, and allowable computation. So, if we go for the definition of such a platform, then we have to, the first objective is to have a workflow that will help to efficiently set up and compute virtual allowable. So we started from some concepts, some basic concepts, and we started from what type of input do we need to define this platform. So the input that we have, the platform that we, the input that we need and the input that the user has in the end, most of the time, it's a lamina data, so it's data at the level of the lamina, and that can be obtained from a specific set of standard tests. So in terms of value that we need the mean value, and we will need some variability measurement. So we will see in detail how we do that in the next chapter. And once we have our ply properties, then we can go for the calibration of the constituent property. So here we will have a reverse engineering process that will allow us to get fiber and matrix property. So this is the output of that operation. We have the constituent property identified in terms of stiffness and strength, and we will have, if we go for variability measurement, we will have some coefficient of variability that will be reverse engineered or that can be provided. So if we have calibration or if we have constituent properties, then we will go for a multi-scale analysis. So it means that in the platform, we will have possibility to define some standard test configuration. We will have the possibility to introduce the variability into the test matrix. So we will have the possibility to define a test matrix in order to apply specific coefficient of variability for specific parameters. And then we will execute a probabilistic and validated numerical model. The execution of that multi-scale analysis will allow us to generate some allowable using some specific procedure, like for example, the STAT17 procedure. So in a more illustrated way, the same workflow. So we start in the platform, we start with a material calibration. So from lamina properties, from ply property, the platform will identify constituent property, so fiber and matrix property in terms of stiffness and strength. And then we go for the different layup that the user wants to study. So we go for the layup definition, then we go for the test geometry definition, and we have the possibility to define the test matrix. So when we define the test matrix, we can define the specific number of batch, then the specific number of panel per batch, and the specific coupon per panel. So at that level, the variability will be spread over the test matrix definition. Then we'll go for the execution of the multi-scale analysis of the whole test matrix. So we will solve all the configuration that are defined in the test matrix in order to generate for each configuration a stress strain curve. So it means simply to solve until the failure of each configuration. We extract the raw stress strain curve in order to perform a statistical post-processing to compute the B basis and the mean value. So we can see that into detail now. So the input that the user needs for prior the constituent calibration, it's lamina property. So it's a property obtained at the lamina level following some very standard tests. So all the tests, it's ISTM test, it's a very standard test. I mean, they are the most simple one that we can find. So there is the need for having the lamina property and then the resin property at the working condition. Then this is the property that are extract from the standard test, so the stiffness and the strength in each direction, and if it exists, the possibility to have also some nonlinearity, so eventually the nonlinearity in the in-plane shear behavior. Then using homogenization method, we will perform the calibration of each constituent properties. So we define, we start from the anisotropic ply properties, and we perform a reverse engineering or calibration of each constituent property, so in terms of for the fiber and for the resin. And at the end of this reverse engineering property, then the phase property in terms of stiffness and strength are calibrated. So we have now the identification of a macroscopic model for the phase, for each phase, so for the fiber and for the matrix. Then we have seen that we need also to define a progressive failure behavior of the ply. So we have in the platform, we have in the platform two approaches to describe the anisotropic damage behavior of the ply. So there is what we call, and the most common one, which is a stress-based approach, where we have some specific criteria for the damage initiation. So there's a large library of damage initiation criteria. We can have, for example, this one that I use on my slide. It's a failure criteria that will make the difference between the fiber failure and the matrix failure. Then on top of the damage initiation criteria, then we have to define some damage propagation law and stiffness degradation procedure. So here in the platform, it's quite standard procedure that are used here. We have possibility to have different type of damage propagation law in order to reproduce some nonlinearity that can be observed experimentally, and the stiffness degradation is performed through Madsen-Miller framework. The second approach that is proposed now in the platform, it's a strain-based approach, which is also called the onset theory. And here, the strain invariant are used as a scalar descriptor of any critical event. So we compute two types of strain invariants. There is the dilatation one, which we characterize a volume change, and there is the second strain invariant, which will compute the distortion or the shape change. Sorry. Then, in that process, so when we use the onset theory, we use some converged mesh, which will provide the strain state at any point of the coupon, and after dehomogenization and analysis of the matrix and fiber strain separately, the failure can be assessed. So this is the second approach to simulate or to predict the failure of the coupon. So in both cases, we use a multi-scale approach. So it means that the coupon problem is solved using the finite element approach, and during the resolution of that coupon, the finite element solver will call the engine or the material modeling provided through the platform. So, and the platform will solve the multi-scale problem. Also, we have seen that a large number of tests has to be performed to generate some allowables. So The platform now contains some different, a large library of parameterized tests. So the unnotched coupon, for example. So each test has been defined following the ISTM standard. So you have the unnotched coupon, the open hole coupon, the fill hole coupon. So all are available in traction, in tension and compression condition. The fill hole coupon is available for different shape of bolt, for example. And you have also the bearing test, so the double shear bearing test, the single shear bearing test, and the single shear bearing test with two connections. So again, for the single shear bearing test, the different shape of the bolt or different geometry of the bolt are available. So if we apply this type of modeling, so the progressive failure apply on the parameterized finite element model and solve with a multi-scale analysis, then we can have this type of information as a post-processing. So this is a very simple example. Now, just for illustration, we apply that methodology on the open hole tension coupon, and here we have, for example, a cavity isotropic layer. The material here, it's a IS4 with a matrix 8552, so we can find such information in the report that are edited and released by the NIAR. So what we see here is we have, for example, a stress-strain curve, which has this shape, and we have here a first point that appears in the post-processing. So this first point corresponds to the beginning of the damage that appears in the matrix, so in the ply oriented at 90 degrees. So I hope it's clear on the screen for you, but here we see that there is two elements of the coupon that switch on, so the color of those elements change and become one. So here it's because we display the damage variable in the transverse direction. So here we are able to capture the beginning of the damage in the matrix. And then if we continue the loading of the coupon, then we reach a second point. And here this second point corresponds to the beginning of the damage, but in the fiber direction this time. So this damage, it's the damage in the axial direction, and it appears in the ply oriented at 0 degree. And then once we have the damage that appears in the fiber direction, then we reach very quickly after that the ultimate strength of the laminate. So in the platform, the maximum of this curve will be considered as the allowable. So that's what I show in the first slide. We will consider the final failure appear after the maximum value here of the curve. So now we have also to deal with the biggest challenge, which is the insertion of variability. So we need to be able to take into account the variability if we want to generate some allowable, because we have seen that the allowable, the allowable is chosen to mitigate the probability of structural failure due to material variability. So they are selected to ensure the material strength with a specific probability and for a mature process. So this is what we call the B basis. So also the allowable are obtained during some specific test campaign, so different type of batch, panel, and coupon. So it means that we have to be able to reproduce this test campaign with the same organization. So to understand a little bit some specificity about the allowable, it's also interesting to just to recall quickly the different step or stage or milestone in the design of any component. So mainly here it's aeronautic component. So we have always a pre-design phase, which ends by the confirmation of the configuration. And then once we have confirmed the design, we go through a detailed sizing process. And then once it's done, we have the production cycle that can start. And in aerospace, it's very frequent that actually the final design value or the allowable value they become available only during the detailed sizing process. So it means that actually the allowable value are obtained during a short period of time regarding the whole cycle of an airplane. So if we start here, the design value are allowable, the allowable become available maybe after, from this point to this point, maybe we have like 3 or 4 years, but the whole life cycle of the airplane, it's probably more than 20 years. So the allowable value are obtained during a short period of time regarding the whole cycle life of the airplane, and this is done with no insurance that the variability observed during that allowable generation phase will be representative of the whole production cycle. So we build we generate the allowable value for this life, for this period of time, but we have no guarantee that the material that we will use 20 years after will have exactly the same type of variability. So that's why it's important to understand that material specification defines the objective in terms of final raw properties, but also in terms of acceptable range of variation for each property. So that's why a virtual testing platform should provide ways to evaluate the effect of variability coming from different sources on the laminate straight value. So we have seen that the allowable must capture the variability expected during the manufacturing and assembly. So the test matrix should be structured in such a way to be able to capture this variability with respect of the possible sources of variability. So in the platform, we have reproduced the test matrix recommended by the FAA. So we have 3 levels. The first level, which is the batch, and on the batch level, we will apply the variability at the material level. Second level is the panel, and at that level, we will apply the variability coming from the process manufacturing. And the last level is the coupon level, and here we will apply the variability coming from the post-process parameter. So now we have 2 situations to define a test matrix with variability. And that's the biggest challenge actually for the virtual testing with variability. So 2 situations. The first one is the material supplier can provide a good measure of those variability. So material supplier, they have some tracking, they have the history of the variation of the material properties, so they are able to provide some variability, some coefficient of variability for all the constituents. Also, another way could be that OEM mainly, they have also internal knowledge of this variability because they have performed some measure themselves, so they can have some knowledge of those variability. So that's the first situation, which is that the variability is known. But the second situation, which is most of the time for the end user, is that the constituent variability are not available. So we will see in both cases what we can do with that. So we have defined, how can we introduce, or how can we insert the variability at the material level? So we have a microscopic description of the composite. So we have reverse engineer the constituent properties, so the fiber properties and the resin properties in terms of stiffness and strength. And now we have a complete separated description for each. So the variability can be introduced at the fiber level and at the matrix level. So we have the possibility to introduce variability on the matrix properties, on the fiber properties. And because we use homogenization, then the homogenization process now will recompute the properties of the ply, but taking into account the variability. So that's for the material level. For the process variability, we have here the possibility to define the variability on the fiber volume fraction. So again, if we apply variability on the fiber volume fraction, we have, through the homogenization process, we have the possibility to recompute ply property that will take into account now of the variability on the fiber volume fraction. So we have variability on the material property, variability on the volume fraction. We have some distribution of each property, so the software is able to recompute ply property that will take into account the variability on the material level, but also on the volume fraction level. So through the volume fraction level, it's also a way to have the effect of the thinning, for example, or any modification of the thickness. So instead of modifying the stiffness, we can also modify the volume fraction. Then the last level is the variability that appears at the coupon level, so it's what we call the post-process variability. And here it's defined through or with an angle value, so it's more a kind of tolerance that we can accept. It's a kind of error that we can accept when we cut the coupon from the panel. So here the expression is directly in degrees. So, sorry, when we have defined this variability at the material level, so we can go for the definition of the test matrix. So if you remember, we have the material calibration, the layup definition, the test matrix, the test configuration definition, and then the variability on the test matrix. So here we can define specific number of batch, specific number of panel, specific number of coupon, and through the coefficient of variability that we have defined, we are able to spread this variability and to define a configuration for each of those association or each combination of variability. So how we compute the B-basis value after the finite element analysis? So we use simply the ASAP method, which is proposed by the NIAR. So ASAP method stands for the Aggregate Statistical Analysis Program. So it's a program that has been proposed and which is available on the NIAR website. So there is two assumptions here in this procedure, in this program. So it assumes a normal distribution for the population. So in the case of a population of strength, here in our case, or ultimate load, this one will be normal because we use a normal distribution law to describe the variability. So previously, when I spoke about coefficient of variability, we rebuild a normal distribution using this coefficient of variability. And then we assume that all the batches of data are from the same population. So that's the two assumptions to use this procedure to compute the B-basis value. So if we are in the case where the variability is known, so we can apply directly variability on the fiber and variability on the matrix. So if we apply this on a specific material, so for example, the AS48552, and we apply this again on the quasi-isotropic laminate, and we use an open-hole compression test, then here what we have done is we have defined a different number of draw for that configuration. So like, for example, 30 coupon, 100 coupon, 300 coupon, and 600 coupon. And then what I have done after that is I have extracted the mean value. So we see that we have a pretty constant mean value versus the number of coupon. And then we have plotted also the evolution of the B-basis value. And here we see that for 30 coupon, we have something about 283, and then for 100 coupon, 286, and then for 300 coupon, 290, and then for 600 coupon, 290. So we see that here that above 30 coupon, the B-basis value reach a constant value. So it increased at the beginning, and then we see that we reach a converged value. So the evolution of the frequency for each strength value can also be plotted to verify now that the normal distribution of the strength is finally reached. So what I plot here is the frequency of the strength value that appears. So here you have for 30 coupons, so what you see in red is the strength value for the 30 coupon, and there is superposed the mean value and the b-basis value. And then we see that when we increase the number of draws, so from 30 to 600, we reach finally a normal distribution of the strength value. So what does it bring? What type of information that type of test bring? It means that the virtual testing provides a way to estimate the minimum number of draws to reach a converged b-basis. So if the variability is known, so it's mainly for existing material, then the virtual testing may generate a very obvious return on investment. We see that a virtual test campaign with 30 draws can be done, it's very quick, but rather than 300 physical coupons per configuration and under consideration. So this has to be also performed over a significant period of time. So here what we show, it's we have a virtual test campaign with 300 draws that allow us to reach a converged b-basis value. But if I have to get that converged b-basis value by test, then most likely I have also to run 300 physical coupons. So obviously it's not the same cost, it's not the same time to get that converged b-basis value. And another constraint is that if we do with physical tests, then we have to do that over a significant period of time. It means this cannot be done with the same number of batches, so we have to produce different batches, we have to assemble different batches, we have to cure different type of panel. So really that's the first benefit of the virtual testing platform. Also we can plot we can analyze through virtual testing, we can analyze the effect of each parameter's distribution on the resulting strength. So here what I display is, for example, the evolution of the laminate strength with the fiber volume fraction, and here on the right it's the same, it's the evolution of the laminate strength with the fiber strength distance. So here the virtual testing approach can bring a solution to help to speed up the material specification on the properties, but also on the specification on the acceptable variation on this material. So we see, for example, here, if we plot the distribution for a specific coefficient of variation of the fiber volume fraction, then we are able, for example, to define some boundary, some acceptable boundary on this variation of the fiber volume fraction. See, if the user wants to have absolutely to stay limited in a specific boundary of values, then he can define himself the specification on the variation, this time not only on the value, but the specification on the variation in order to remain in the range of value that he desires for his design. So this was in the case where the variability is known, but this most of the time the variability is unknown, and here the variability needs to be estimated. And this is what we are going to see in detail now. So a methodology to insert a realistic variability estimation into the material model can be proposed. So the idea is that using the variability measure on the basic laminar property, then we set a methodology to predict the b-basis value at the laminate property. So here the idea is to use variability observed or known at the ply level in order to compute b-basis value or allowable of any laminate configuration. So to do that, we need to build a methodology to reverse engineer the variability of the fiber and the resin, knowing the variability observed experimentally at the laminar level. So we start from a set of experimental data at the unitary ply level. So here experimental data should cover the mean value, of course, but also the b-basis or a measure of the variability. And then we determine the constituent variability in order to converge towards the experimental laminar b-basis. And then we will reuse after that this variability onto we will reuse this variability associated to any to the lamina, and when this lamina is used into the laminate. So the workflow of the methodology is that one. We start from the experimental ply variability. We identify the fiber and the resin variability. We need to verify this fiber, this ply variability. And then once we have the ply variability, or once we have the variability of each constituent of the ply, then we can reuse this to any type of laminate in order now this time to compute the basis value of the laminate. So for this case study, we use some data coming from a report that has been edited again by the NAIAR. So the material used here is the AS48552, so unidirectional. And here the platform is used to predict the mean straight value and the B-basis value for the unnotched and for the whole, the open hole configuration and room temperature. So the objective is that we start from variability measure at the ply level, and we want to identify variability of each constituent, or at the constituent level. So the variability at the ply level is given in the encounter or in the NAIAR report, and it's given for four standard tests. So longitudinal intention, longitudinal incompression, transverse intention, and transverse incompression. And here, so this table is a summary of the data available in that report, and just to perform this case study, what I use is the most conservative value, because sometimes there is NAIAR suggests to compute two types of B bases, and in this case, I have chosen the most conservative value. So here in red, it's the value that we will target, or that we will keep as a B basis value for the ply. So in the software, I can enter my ply properties. So the software now will reverse automatically the fiber and the matrix property. That's what we explained earlier. And now I have to introduce some variability at the constituent level. So at the variability at the material level, variability also on the volume fraction, and variability on the mesolimit. So the challenge now is to know, which value I will put, or which coefficient of variability I will put on the matrix and on the fiber. So in the NAIAR report, there is variability measured at the ply level for all those different type of tests. So for the longitudinal intention, incompression, transverse intention, and incompression. So we have some coefficient of variation measured at the ply level here. And what we do is we will assume that all the fiber-related parameters will be calibrated using the longitudinal response. So this will concern the fiber stiffness, the fiber strength, and the fiber volume fraction. And we will also assume that all the matrix-related parameters are calibrated using the transverse response. So this will concern the matrix stiffness and the matrix strength. So it means that all these four coefficients of variability, I can apply the longitudinal one on the fiber property, I can apply the transverse one on the matrix property. These are not the final variability, of course, but this information are used as an initial set of coefficient of variation, and this is done according to those assumptions. So the value or the variability measure at the ply level is just the initial set of variability that will be used for a complete procedure to identify the constituent level variability. So now in the platform, what we do is we have defined a specific test matrix to resimulate the four tests, longitudinal traction compression and transverse traction compression. On top of the material definition, we have introduced the initial guess of variability. And now we have to define a specific test matrix to spread this variability. So we have seen that we have a procedure to see if we can have a converged B-basis value. So we will define a test matrix that allows us to have a converged B-basis value. And then we will execute this test matrix. And as an output of this execution, I will be able to compute the B-basis value for each test, so B basis value for the test 1, 2, 3, 4. So I will have an output B basis value for those 4 tests, and I will have the possibility now to compare those 4 B basis value with the experimental value. And if I consider that I'm close enough from the experimental value, then I can keep those values, but if not, then I will have to revisit my variability properties at the constituent level in order to go again to that process and to check if we have convergence. So how can we modify those values if we don't think that the convergence is achieved? So we have the possibility for each type of test, we have the possibility to post-process and to, we have a summary of each row. So the variability of each test can be identified. So we can see, especially for the extrema, we can see for each test which parameter has an effect and has the strongest impact. And with that knowledge, we know which parameter that we can adjust in order that we converge to the experimental B basis value. So this is what I have as a result of that process. So here, what I have put in that table, it's the experimental mean value for the 4 basic tests. So this is the lamina level. And this is what I have with my platform, with my solution. So we see that the error, it's really acceptable in terms of mean value. But here, what I have seen, it's that what I can see now is that the prediction of the B bases are also correct. We have pretty good prediction of the B bases, especially for the fiber-dominated test, let's say, for the unnotched in the 0 direction and the unnotched compression in the 0 direction. So what we have now, we can consider that we have a set of variability of the constituent or at the constituent level that allow me to reproduce correctly the variability that I can observe at the ply level. So if I have this now, then it can be, all this variability at the ply level can be reused in any laminate. So I can rebuild a complete test matrix, but using this time any type of laminate I want, using this time also any type of test that I want. So for example, a notch compression, tension, open hole, intention compression for different type of layups. So here, for example, I have used 3. So this is the layup that we find also in the NCAMP report. And then here we can play with, for example, 30 row, just to take into account the variability. So it means that here I have a test matrix with 360 configurations. So I have to solve 360 finite element problem, but as a result, I will have the B basis value of each laminate. So the tests are then run with the calibrated material model and including the variability. And here I have used, for example, the default setting of the platform. So it means I have not modified or I have not calibrated any numerical model. And here what we see, it's we have as a post-processing for each of the tests. So this is for the open hole with the first layer, the open hole of the second layer, and the open hole for the third layer. So this is tension, this is compression, this is the unnotched in tension, the unnotched in compression. And what we have here, it's the experimental value, the mean value. What we have here, it's obtained with the platform. And then we have the measure of the error for the mean value. And I reproduce the same for the B basis value with the measure of the error for the B basis value. And I did the same for even for the A basis. And what we see is that if we have an acceptable error on the mean value, then we have also more or less the same level of error on the B basis value, which is good. So here it means that the mean values are predicted within almost 10%, and my B basis value are almost in the same range of error. So we can even go further. So we have also possibility to plot a carpet plot. So this is another benefit of the virtual testing. It's we can compute and generate B basis value We can also compute quickly some carpet plots. So for those who don't know what is a carpet plot, so the carpet plot represents various combinations of symmetric and balanced laminate that contain 0, 45, and 90 degrees ply. So we have the possibility to define all the different possible configuration of laminate containing 0, 45, 90 degree ply. And then we will solve for each configuration, we will solve the specific coupon that is asked. So here it's, for example, a carpet plot that has been done for an open hole coupon in tension. So, and such a tool can be used to find the property for a given laminate. So what's the strength for a laminate that will have, for example, 60% of ply at 0 degree with 40% of ply at 45 degree and no ply at 90 degree. I mean, you can find any type of, you can get any type of, any strength value for any laminate, but also you can do the opposite exercise. You can find which laminate will satisfy a particular strength value. So you have one strength value and you want to know which laminate will give you that, that result. So that's another benefit of the virtual testing platform. It's to get quickly or to plot quickly a carpet plot. So if I summarize what we have seen so far, we have seen that the prediction of a coupon strength is achievable based on limited amount of experimental data. So constituent, stiffness, and the microstructure. That's the two information that we need. We need also the ply strength. And then based on this, the laminate strength can be predicted for several standard tests. A virtual testing platform, it's a first milestone for a solution dedicated to the productive generation of virtual allowable, including variability. So we can predict any type of B-basis, or we can predict B-basis value for any type of test. And here we have seen also, in addition, that the methodology is proposed to identify the variability at the constituent level, knowing some observed variability at the ply level. So I will just finish with the last chapter. So we can even go further if we want really to use micromechanics approach. So here the objective is to use micromechanics to add other sources of variability. So we have seen that the generation of the allowable is done using multi-scale analysis executed on finite element model of the coupon. And we have seen that it's possible to insert variability on the constituent level, on the volume fraction, and on the misalignment of the coupon. But to really increase the benefit and the value of a virtual testing platform, then this platform must provide methodologies based on micromechanics model to explore additional effects. So here I have listed some effects. So for example, we have the effect of porosity on the ply properties, but also we can study the environmental condition, just because environmental conditions are very costly tests, and if those tests could be replaced, then that will eliminate a lot of time that is wasted just to wait that the conditioning of the coupon is achieved. Another thing that we can study using micromechanics, it's also the effect of curing and the prediction of residual stress. So here, just illustration on how we can use micromechanics to study those sources of variability. So we have performed a reverse engineering of the constituent properties. So the knowledge of the property of each phases allow us to build now a detailed description of the microstructure. So we can build a specific description of a unidirectional if we are dealing with a unidirectional. So, and for example, we can apply some specific properties on each constituent of that new description of the microstructure. So we can play, of course, or we can define the volume fraction, some properties per phase, so the elastic fiber. The matrix can have a specific behavior like elastoplastic with damage, and we have also the possibility to define some interface properties, so interface between the fiber and the resin. And for example, those properties can be determined from the fiber matrix bond test, so that it means that some push-out or pull-out test. So a micromechanic model like this can be calibrated now to reproduce the failure envelope of the lamina. So what we do is we have applied some constituent property. We have maybe just to recalibrate a bit those properties to make sure that when I apply the unitary load, I'm able to reproduce correctly the failure load of the ply. So this calibrated micromechanic model can become a reference now to analyze as a type of effect. So it means now, if I restart from my microstructure, I have calibrated the phase properties, I have calibrated the interface properties. So now, if I introduce, for example, porosity in that micromechanic model, then I will be able to compute the new failure envelope of this ply, or the new strength of this ply, of this lamina, but in presence of porosity. So here we have, for example, a description of the ply with 5% of porosity, so I have possibility to define a percentage of porosity, but also it can be also a distribution of the shape of the porosity. And then I will solve my macromechanic model. So here I have a detail on the mesh that I use, for example, and I hope you can see that the insertion of the porosity inside the mesh. And what I can do now is I can reapply the unitary loads in presence of void, and I will have the possibility now to compute the new strength of the ply in presence of void. So here I have done the exercise, for example, for the transverse property. So we have in the, let's say, the behavior without any defect. So we have the stiffness, the Young modulus in the transverse direction, and the strength in the transverse direction. Then for the same macromechanic model, but in presence of 5% of void, then I'm able to recompute now the transverse properties and the transverse strength. And of course, I'm able to compute the knockdown factor. So here what we do with that micromechanic model, we recompute or we redefine new lamina property in terms of stiffness and strength for each percentage of porosity. So now I can compute, or I can build a distribution of properties based on the distribution of percentage of void. So we have new lamina property in presence of porosity. So I will have the possibility. So this new lamina property can be transferred now to the virtual testing platform. And this is what we can do. So we can reuse and reconstruct the lamina property and then apply that to a new material on any standard test. So here I have used, for example, the material without porosity, and the second material, it's the equivalent model that I have rebuilt with my macromechanic model, but with the porosity this time. And then I can run any type of coupon, any type of layer that will take into account the presence of porosity. And here, for example, I have compared the response on the test, so it's an open hole tension coupon, and I can compare the effect of a specific percentage of porosity. So I'm able now to compute the knockdown factor on the coupon, on the laminate, in presence of a specific percentage of porosity. And the last thing that we can also study with micromechanic model, and that give really value to a virtual testing solution. So it's the prediction of the lamina behavior, but in this case for extreme temperature, wet environmental conditions. So the laminate testing in this type of condition is extremely time consuming. It takes really a lot of time to reach the correct conditioning. So here, based only on the resin behavior, identifying a specific environmental condition, then again, the behavior of the lamina for the same condition can be computed. So if we assume that the ply property are only impacted by the resin property or the modification of the resin property in such environmental condition, then now again we are able to recompute the lamina property for that new environmental condition. So it means here, what I just need, it's a characterization of the matrix for such environmental condition. I don't need to perform tests at the laminate level for that environmental condition. And then here what I've done, the same type of computation for the transverse property. For example, I can compute the modification of the knockdown factor on the stiffness and the strength for between the room temperature and between the extreme wet condition. So here I can reapply. If I change the resin properties, then I'm able to compute the new Young modulus in the transverse direction and the new strength in the transverse direction. So again, here the process will be the same. I'm able now to redefine new lamina property in terms of stiffness and strength for that environmental condition, and then this new lamina property now can be transferred to the virtual testing platform, and then I will be able to compute laminate properties or even B-basis value, but in extreme wet condition. So it's time now to conclude that presentation. So we have tried to illustrate in that webinar how virtual testing can help to accelerate new material insertion into a design. So material and numerical model are not perfect, so I know that we can always discuss the choice in terms of modeling, but those models are useful. So if we accept that simulation is a useful guide for designing complex engineering systems, then we open ourselves to tools that can greatly accelerate new material initiatives. So traditionally we screen, we characterize, we even design new material with only physical testing, but now with a huge amount of material combination, the traditional multiple phase testing campaign, from screening, down selection, validation, certification, become inefficient. So simulation can help to accelerate this test campaign, can help to provide insight and answer well before physical tests can be ordered, created, tested, and reported. So the objective of a virtual testing platform, it's not to substitute all the tests, it's more to help to test smarter, to speed up the down selection at an early design phase. It can help also to reach quicker final acceptance, and then, of course, to support better the decision making.